Seeing none, we can move on to AB 191 now.
Okay, so with that, I'd like to turn it to, again, Council Carrie Parker, who is in the Reno office. We know that this is important, and why I supported a neutral position was just because of the significant impact that this legislation could have on NSHE, both from an operational perspective as well as from a fiscal perspective. So with that, Carrie Parker, please.
Good morning, Chair Carvalho, Regents, Chancellor Charlton, Deputy General Counsel Carrie Parker for the record. Before we discuss AB 191, I'd like to provide some background on the collective bargaining process for professional employees that is already in place under the handbook. For decades, the NSHE Handbook, Title IV, Chapter 4, has provided for collective bargaining for certain categories of professional employees employed for 6 months at 0.50 FTE or more, excluding adjunct faculty members, administrators, and clinical faculty members. Currently, there are 3 collective bargaining agreements, or CBAs, covering approximately 930 professional employees. These are at TMCC, CSN, and WNC. Today, of course, the board voted to provide for an election at NSU related to collective bargaining. AB 191 would change this process. AB 191 expands the categories of employees who could bargain. Currently, as I mentioned, approximately 930 faculty are subject to a CBA. According to our understanding of AB 191, it would allow approximately 22,000 employees to elect an exclusive representative and engage in bargaining. These would include academic faculty, administrative faculty, those on letters of appointment or part-time instructors who work more than 160 hours in a calendar year, graduate assistants, postdoctoral scholars, residents, student workers, any temporary or hourly employees working more than 160 hours per year, and technologists at DRI. Many of these employees who would gain access to collective bargaining under AB 191 currently are at-will employees. In other words, they may be terminated without cause. At-will employees in other state agencies include unclassified or non-classified employees who do not have collective bargaining rights. AB 191 expands the scope of mandatory topics for bargaining beyond what is in the handbook and beyond what is in NRS 288 for classified employees. Management rights are very important rights that are reserved to the employer. AB 191 recognizes shared governance, which includes joint decision-making and consultation between administration and faculty or academic professional employees. AB 191 also recognizes that the provisions of AB 191 are not intended to restrict, limit, or prohibit shared governance mechanisms. Nonetheless, there is concern that AB 191 does not reserve important management rights. For state classified employees, NRS Chapter 288 reserves certain management rights to the executive department. AB 191 provides some of these management rights, but omits explicit reference to the right to determine appropriate staffing levels, performance standards, the content of the workday, and the means and methods of offering those services. During the 2023 legislative session, the governor vetoed a similar bill. In his veto message, he noted the absence of recognition of certain management rights, particularly in NSHE's right to determine means and methods of providing services to the public. What happens under AB 191 if there is an impasse in negotiations? While the handbook provides for mediation, AB 191 would require not only mediation, but if mediation were not successful, binding arbitration. If prohibited practices are alleged, the State Employee Management Relations Board, or the EMRB, may hear those complaints, and the EMRB's decision is subject to judicial review under the Nevada Administrative Procedure Act, or NRS Chapter 233B. The EMRB charges a $10 fee for each professional employee who belongs to a bargaining unit with an exclusive representative. Regarding grievances, AB 191 expands the definition of what may be grieved. For example, under the Board of Regents Code, decisions of the Board of Regents are not subject to review by the grievance procedures. Neither are decisions of non-renewal or contract termination without cause. AB 191's definition of a grievance is broader than that. What happens if a grievance is not resolved? Under current board policy, grievances by professional employees are resolved or adjusted internally. AB 191 would require binding arbitration for grievances. Section 36 of the bill does recognize shared governance, but does not guarantee that current shared governance procedures, such as the current Chapter 6 process, will be retained. How much will AB 191 cost? NSHE's fiscal note was made public yesterday. While the full fiscal impact of potential salary and benefits increases cannot be determined at this time, the fiscal note focuses on the additional staffing and operational expenses required to support the build-out of the proposed collective bargaining framework. This legislation would significantly increase the number of employees eligible to collectively bargain. It would increase the number of bargaining units that would be negotiated with. It would expand the scope of mandatory bargaining, and it would increase the procedural requirements to resolve grievances and employment disputes, culminating in arbitration by a third party. The infrastructure required to support collective bargaining in a unionized environment under AB 191 will require significant personnel and operating costs. NSHE's fiscal note proposes phasing in the new positions required with 4 positions in FY26, 6 new positions in FY27, and a remaining 9 new positions in the next biennium. The fiscal note anticipates a fiscal cost of over $800,000 for fiscal year 26, $1.7 million for fiscal year 27, and a total of $6.2 million in future biennia. This does not include fiscal needs that would be bargained, such as increased salaries or benefits. The current legislative history is that this bill was proposed by Assembly Member Natha Anderson, who has been very open and gracious in meeting with NSHE representatives. On March 4th, the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs heard this bill, and NSHE testified in neutral, as the Chancellor mentioned, as we are awaiting direction from this board. So with that, Chair, System Administration requests direction from the board as to whether to support or oppose AB 191, and I stand ready for questions.
Chancellor, before I open it up for questions, why wasn't the board provided this information in advance? This would have been very helpful for us to prepare for this item. So it's very difficult for me to write down everything that was said. There's a lot there, and it would have been very helpful for us to have this information in advance.
So at the time that we provided supplemental materials, which was Monday, we did not have the testimony, and we have been working through even the amendments that were proposed of the bill on Tuesday as well. So we'd be happy to, again.
I understand the things that have happened since then, but it sounds like there's been an argument that's already been established for neutral or neutral in this instance. But again, I mean, this bill, the text of it was I don't know what the right word is. It came out before that, so I think it would have been helpful for us to have this information. And I just want to put on the record that I do feel that there have been some times where, I feel like the entire time I've been on the board, the discussion about collective bargaining seems to always be done outside of the board or at the very last minute. I don't feel like we've had a good, robust discussion about where the board may be I understand this is our first time with this bill this session, but I feel like last session there was a lot of, there weren't enough opportunities for board members to weigh in on this in a public setting. So I just have to say I'm a little frustrated that this information, a lot of it could have been brought forward sooner to us in a written form so that we could do our due diligence to come to a good decision today. So I just want to put that out there. So at this time, I will open it up to others. Regent Del Carlo.
I completely agree with what you just said, and Ms. Parker's reading something that she prepared, and why didn't we get that? I mean, we get public comment at the last minute. We got some at 20 to 8 this morning. We got about 16 more public comments. So why couldn't that have been given to us? That would have been so helpful, because I agree, there's so much in that. This is huge. This is really huge, and I don't even know if we can, I don't know how soon you have to have your decision. I know we got a special meeting coming up. Can we pull it out? And even if we had to have an emergency meeting so we could really understand this, I mean, the numbers here are huge. And we don't even have money for proper COLA funding, and we might not even get 80%. So where's this money going to come from? I'm really frustrated.
For the record, I don't believe that walking through the bill would count as public comment, but I would ask council for that. Our concern would be that if the bill is passed, and we've had good conversations with the assembly member, we just had it late last week, regarding our concerns and wanting to have a continued dialogue regarding the bill, and also just transparency. And Chair, you're aware, I did meet with also the NFA, Kent Irvin, Jim New, and Doug Unger, just to open those lines of communication so that they understood why the neutral stance, and I did make you aware of that. And so we certainly can advise on the review of the bill. It is, I will say, as Council Parker mentioned, fiscal notes dropped yesterday. There are other fiscal notes related to this, including one from the state that we were not privy to. And so there's probably ongoing conversation that has to happen as it pertains to this bill.
The fiscal notes are one thing. The expansion of the scope of bargaining rights and the omissions of bargaining rights, that would be helpful for those of us on the board that don't come from a collective bargaining background. Yes, I am aware that you met with the NFA. I've asked for some more information, and I feel like there's that there is more information to be gained, and it would be helpful in written form to us. Obviously that was a lot of information that it's again, I would have much preferred to have that in advance so that I can make a better informed decision on this particular item. I know that it's of extreme concern for like everybody in this room, and so we want to make sure that we have the best and most up-to-date information. So I would appreciate it if we could get that. Thank you. Regent Brooks, did you have something? I do. Okay, we'll go to Regent Gokachia.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and of course, I think in my mind, as we dealt with this early this morning, I do believe everyone has the right to organize, even though I did vote against collective bargaining back in the day for state employees. But again, how that, and maybe reach out to Ms. Parker on this one, but as I remember the legislation for collective bargaining for state employees, ultimately, the governor in the end, it didn't require arbitration, binding arbitration. I mean, you could go the whole gamut, but the governor could say no in the end. And I think we have to be in a similar position as the Board of Regents to have the ability to say, no, that's a hill too far. And so, again, it's all about the legislation and what's coming forward, and Assemblywoman Anderson is very reasonable. And but, again, that's why I brought it up about the fiscal note in the end. Ultimately, you know, if it's a hill too far, then we end up looking for a veto because, again, that's the question when we opened this. It's all about the fiscal impacts, and clearly they're going to be huge. But again, I also have to say I do believe that everyone should have the right to organize, even though it is a right to work state. You don't have to belong, but everywhere from local government on up, everybody anymore is is now pretty much in some kind of a union. But again, it all depends on, in the ultimate final standings, and you end up in binding arbitration, and I go clear back to when I was a county commissioner. That's problematic. Thank you.
Regent Brooks.
Thank you, Chair. So it seems to me, besides the significant consideration of what the fiscal impact is for NSHE regarding this bill, probably maybe the conversation should really revolve around what has gone on at our institutions where graduate assistants feel like there's been such a lack of responsiveness that the only way they can be heard is by organizing and putting together a union. And so, to me, this is an opportunity to have ongoing conversations with those graduate students who feel comfortable having real conversations about the things that they are concerned with. And I recognize when it comes to our students, based on the experiences I've had with Jewish students, is it's very easy for students to identify where there's a shortcoming or shortfall, but it's very difficult for them to present it vocally. There are just some students that really do worry about what does it mean to be out in front of an issue. And so there's a balance that has to be found in here where we're able to have conversations with those students who are courageous enough to talk about some of the shortcomings, and then take a look at what types of policy do we have that, in other words, is there a policy that we have that's been circumvented, either on purpose or unintentionally, if there is a complaint? So, for instance, if there's a Title IX complaint, but action isn't being done, there's a lack of responsiveness, we would want to take a look at that, because that would affect more than just graduate assistants. It would affect other students, faculty, staff. And so there are things that I think we really need to take a deep dive into. For me, this seemed like something that went from 0 to 100 pretty quickly. And so I think there's lots of nuances to this and lots of considerations, and I just wanted to offer that. Besides the very real fiscal consideration, there are other things that perhaps as a board we could take a look at to help enhance the experience of graduate assistants on our institutions. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just say that this bill includes the ability of graduate students to organize, and it also includes, as was stated, the ability for a broader group of professional employees to organize as well. Yes, Regent Fernandez.
Madam Chair,
I will get to you next, Regent Boylan. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. So I have a just general question in addressing, I guess, a comment that Chair Cavallo mentioned earlier. How does NSHE gather these fiscal notes, and how are they consolidated? Because I am looking at Nellis here, and it looks like there was the description of fiscal effect was submitted February 26th. I think it would have been great to have a heads up, but I would like to know the process of how you all go about this and getting this information from all institutions.
Certainly, if I could defer to Vice Chancellor Vitone to respond.
Thank you, Chris Vitone, NSHE CFO, for the record. The process is actually managed through the Legislative Council Bureau's staff, utilizing their system. They send notifications to the system, and then on our end, we work with the institutions circulating the request for the fiscal note that is then run through our office to kind of bring those analyses together, make sure that we're looking at the analyses for consistency and collaboration, and we summarize that and submit it to the Governor's Finance Office. Governor's Finance Office actually ultimately submits it to the legislative system.
is there anything that would have barred, NSHE from sending this report to us before it was even presented to the legislature? Again, I'm just seeing the February 26th day, and this would have at least allowed us a little bit more time to digest this information rather than hearing it after the fact. I think this board should be privy to this information prior to us, getting it after the fact.
Certainly. So for the record, Patty Charlton, so no, we certainly can provide the summary of fiscal notes. We respond to a lot of fiscal notes that actually may not be bills that that are specifically naming NSHE. It could be a change in state policy. I guess I would ask either Vice Chancellor Vitone or Jose Quiroga, who's here, I think he was, just the sheer volume of bills that we have. Some of them do call us out, some don't have a title. We actually had one that we provided a revenue stream because there would be a lease or something that would benefit us. So there's a large volume, I think dozens and dozens that you've responded to.
Chris Fatone, for the record, I'm hesitant to stop short of hundreds, but it is definitely significant.
Dozens.
Yeah. But as the Chancellor mentioned, I don't see any reason that we would not be able to share them, but perhaps it's a matter of how we might make it, rather than just sharing every single one, doing some sort of summary or highlight of the ones that have been submitted.
I guess, I just, as final comment here, I would mention that this has been something.
But at this point, I think Alejandro and, the Chancellor are completely comfortable if they have to go to a bill hearing and wait and see what the amendment's gonna be. Their direction from the Board of Regents is, we're neutral on this until we see what happened. We wanna see the language, and you gotta see the cow before you can buy it. I'm sorry.
If I could just add to that, Chancellor Charlton, for the record, so I do appreciate the conversation. And as I said, this is a very complicated bill, but it's one that's very important to many, many stakeholders. It is important, we know, to the sponsor as well as to individuals within NSHE, and this does have other reaching impact to other state entities and employees. And so this is not just a specific NSHE bill. It can extend to other individuals that fall into those categories, for example, within the state. And so we're not the only ones at the table. And so it's going to be important for us to continue to have those discussions, continue to address. And we had a great conversation. I believe they may not agree with NFA related to even just the complications of a potential 22,000 employees. That's a lot. And so we want to make sure that we understand what that looks like and work through this process because it's complicated, but it's very, very important.
Thank you. So we do have the motion in the second, and I want to ask Regent Brooks, is your intention to then bring back another motion for AB 191, or for us not to even consider that at this time? Just curious about your intentions.
I appreciate that, Regent Brooks, for the record. Thank you, Chair. So the intention was essentially to move the agenda item along based on the conversations that we were having. That really was the intention. It seemed like AB 199 was a sticking point, and so I was trying to remove it from Regents voting on the entirety of all of the measures, whether to support or be neutral or vote no on something if a Regent didn't feel comfortable. And so that was the intention. I'm certainly happy to make a friendly amendment to the motion if it appeases the board so that we can simply just move forward and retract the I would then make an amendment to retract AB 191 from.
I think we'll have council weigh in on that really quick.
Regent Brookside, if you want to, I'd suggest withdraw. If you made the initial motion, I suggest if your intention is to make a change, then to withdraw your motion.
Thank you, Regent Brooks, for the record. So I will withdraw the initial motion. I'll ask that Regent Brown, was it Boylan? Regent Boylan, if you're amenable to that, we're just gonna start over.
Regent Brooks, that breaks me heart. Two bald brothers and you forgot my name and you had to go to Brown. Yes, of course. I withdraw it,
All right.
no worries.
Thank you. So then, Regent Brooks, for the record, I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda, item number 20, the report. Yeah.
And I'll second it again.
Okay, so I have a new motion, from Regent Brooks and a second from Regent Boylan to accept the report as stated, with the supplemental information. Okay, so I
Yes, ma'am.
think that it's appropriate, to take a roll call vote on this one, so Carrie?
Regent Goycochea,
Aye.
Regent Goodman,
Yes.
Regent McGrath,
Aye.
Regent Arascata,
Yes.
Regent Batista,
Yes.
Regent Boylan,
Aye.
Regent Breger,
Yes.
Regent Brooks,
Yes.
Regent Brown,
Yes.
Chair Carvalho,
Aye.
Regent Del Carlo,
Aye.
Vice Chair Downs,
Aye.
Regent Fernandez.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number